The morning sun touched the tall building of the city courthouse. People moved in and out of the big glass doors with papers in their hands and nervous looks on their faces. Inside, the air felt heavy and quiet. Every sound of footsteps echoed on the floor. In one corner of the hall, a young officer named Ryan stood waiting. He was new to his job but liked to show confidence. His uniform was clean and neat, his badge bright. Ryan believed rules were everything. He liked to follow them and wanted everyone else to do the same. Across the hall stood a woman named Mira. She was calm but strong in her eyes. Mira worked as a member of the city council. She was there to speak about a case involving misuse of authority in the local police department. Many people respected her because she always spoke with honesty and courage. She was not afraid to stand for truth, even if it made others uncomfortable. The courtroom soon filled with people. Lawyers opened their files, the judge took the seat, and everyone waited for the hearing to start. The room had a large window through which sunlight came in. Dust moved slowly in the air, glowing under the light. Mira walked to her seat with quiet confidence. She carried a folder with papers full of facts and names. Ryan stood near the door as part of the security team. He had never met Mira before, but he had heard people whispering her name. Some said she was too bold. Others said she was the only one brave enough to question authority. When the judge entered, everyone stood. Then the hearing began. The first lawyer spoke about the case and the events that had happened. It was about a group of officers accused of using power unfairly. Mira was there to share her report as a city representative. When it was her turn to speak, she stood up. Her voice was clear and steady. She spoke about justice, respect, and fairness. She said that those who wear the uniform should serve the people, not control them. Her words made many in the room look down in thought. Even the judge listened with great attention. Ryan watched her from near the wall. He felt uneasy. Something about her words made him think of his own actions. He was not guilty of anything wrong, but her speech touched something deep inside him. He wondered if he truly understood what justice meant. After Mira finished speaking, the lawyer from the police side asked questions. He tried to shake her confidence, but she stayed calm. Every time he asked something hard, she replied with facts. Her steady tone made the lawyer look frustrated. Then something small happened that changed the mood. A paper from Mira's folder fell near Ryan's foot. He bent down quickly to pick it up, but when he stood up, someone bumped into him. The paper slipped again and landed near Mira's shoes. She turned to pick it up and their eyes met for a short moment. It was just a second, but Ryan felt something different. He saw that she was not proud or angry as people said. She looked kind and patient. During a short break, Ryan stepped outside the courtroom to breathe. He stood in the hallway thinking about what he had just seen. He started to feel that maybe he had judged her too soon. Many times he had believed people who spoke against authority were troublemakers. But now he saw that some spoke only because they wanted fairness. When the court started again, things grew tense. A new witness spoke. He tried to twist the story, saying things that were not true. Mira looked calm, but her eyes showed that she knew he was lying. The judge asked her to respond, and she did so with clear words. She pointed out every mistake in his statement one by one. The room became silent. Even the judge leaned forward. Ryan felt proud of how bravely she spoke. She did not raise her voice or show anger. She only used truth and calmness to win the room. As she finished, the judge nodded. He said the court would review her report carefully. Then he gave a short break again. People started whispering. Some said Mira had made a strong point. Others looked uncomfortable because her words exposed problems inside the system. Ryan stayed near the door, watching quietly. He saw that some other officers were not happy. One of them whispered something rude, and Ryan frowned. He did not like disrespect, especially inside the court. He wanted to say something but stopped himself. Mira walked past them, heading to get some water. She looked peaceful even after all the pressure. She saw Ryan and gave a small, polite nod. That simple gesture made him feel respect for her. In that moment, he remembered his training days when his mentor told him that respect must go both ways, from citizens to officers and from officers to citizens. Ryan realized that Mira was showing that very kind of respect even though she was standing against some of them in the case. As the hearing continued, the atmosphere grew heavier. The lawyer for the police side tried one last time to discredit Mira's report. He said she was exaggerating, but she simply showed the evidence again, pointing out dates and names. There was no anger in her words, only honesty. The judge finally said the session would continue the next day. Everyone began leaving the room slowly. Ryan stood by the door as people walked out. When Mira passed, she smiled lightly and said thank you for helping with the paper earlier. Her tone was warm and simple. That small moment stayed in Ryan's mind. It was not just a thank you. It was a sign of mutual respect, something he had not felt from many people lately. When he left the court, the sky outside was turning orange with evening light. The city noise surrounded him, but his thoughts were quiet. He kept thinking about what happened inside. He realized that real strength did not always come from power or rules. Sometimes it came from calm truth and steady courage. At home, Ryan sat by his window. The image of Mira standing in the courtroom stayed in his mind. He thought about what she said about justice and fairness. Her voice echoed in his thoughts as he closed his eyes. The next day would bring another session. He did not know what would happen, but something inside him had already changed. He no longer saw her as just a speaker in court. He saw her as someone who could make people think deeper, even those wearing the uniform like him. That night he promised himself he would serve his duty not only with obedience but also with understanding, because now he knew that true respect was not about fear. It was about fairness, truth, and courage to admit what was right. The courthouse would open again in the morning, and both of them would return, one to guard the peace and the other to speak for it. But inside that hall, something unseen had already begun to move. A quiet shift in hearts that might one day change more than just one case. The next morning came with a soft light spreading over the courthouse. The air outside was cool and the city was slowly waking up. Cars moved quietly on the wet road after a short night rain. Inside the building, everything looked calm, but people who worked there knew that today would be another long day of questions and answers. Ryan reached early. He checked his uniform, made sure his badge was straight, and stood near the main door. He wanted to look professional because he knew the same people from yesterday would return, but inside his mind, things were not the same. He kept thinking about Mira and the way she had spoken in court. Her calm strength had left a mark on him. He now wanted to see how she would continue her fight for truth. When Mira arrived, she walked through the hall holding the same folder she had carried the day before. She looked focused but peaceful. Some people greeted her politely while others whispered quietly behind her. She did not pay attention to any of them. Her eyes were fixed ahead on the courtroom door. Ryan noticed her from a distance. He nodded slightly as she passed by, and she returned a small smile before taking her seat inside. That little exchange made him feel calm. For the first time, he did not see her as someone standing against the officers, but as a person who cared about justice as much as he did. When the judge entered, everyone stood again. The courtroom became silent. Papers moved, pens clicked, and then the hearing began. The lawyer from the police side started first. His voice was sharp and confident. He spoke quickly, trying to make the audience believe that the report Mira had presented was full of misunderstanding. He said that the officers were only following orders, and that mistakes can happen and pressure. Mira listened quietly, taking small notes in her paper. She did not interrupt him once. When it was her turn, she stood and thanked the court for the chance to speak. Then she started explaining how her team had gathered the information, how every detail in her report had been checked twice, and how she respected the officers who followed the law, but not the ones who broke it. Her tone was balanced and respectful. Even the lawyer who had been speaking so fast began to slow down when she answered. Ryan watched every moment carefully. He could see the lawyer growing nervous as Mira explained each fact with confidence. The judge listened closely, sometimes nodding. The people sitting behind whispered softly, impressed by how calmly she handled the questions. Then a new person was called to the stand. It was Officer Dale, one of the senior officers involved in the case. He was known to be strict and proud. His face showed no emotion as he walked forward. When the lawyer asked him to speak, Dale said that he had done everything by the book. He claimed that Mira's report was unfair and made the department look bad. His words were heavy with pride. Mira waited for her turn to ask him questions. When she finally did, her voice stayed calm. She asked him simple things about the rules, about how he handled complaints, and about how he treated people during his work. Dale answered with short replies, but the more he spoke, the more it became clear that he did not know the details of some procedures. Mira never raised her voice or argued. She simply pointed out each unclear answer. The courtroom grew silent as everyone realized how much she knew about the system. Ryan felt the tension growing. He had always looked up to Officer Dale, but now he could see that sometimes pride can hide mistakes. He felt a strange mix of disappointment and respect for the truth Mira was showing. He knew that she was not attacking anyone. She was only trying to make the truth visible to everyone. After a long exchange, the judge called for a short break. People started talking quietly among themselves. Some were surprised by how much Mira knew. Others seemed unhappy because the situation was turning serious for some officers. Ryan walked out into the hallway and stood near a window. The morning light touched his face as he thought about what he had seen. He realized that fairness needed courage from both sides, from those who protect the law and from those who question it. Mira stepped out a few minutes later. She walked to a water cooler and filled a small cup. Ryan turned toward her and spoke softly, asking if she was all right. She smiled and said she was fine, just a little tired. He said that her words were strong but fair, and she thanked him for understanding. For a moment they both stood quietly. Then she said something that stayed with him for the rest of the day. She said that real justice is not about winning or losing, but about learning to be honest even when it is not easy. When the break ended, everyone returned to their seats. The judge entered again, and the next part of the hearing began. The lawyer for Mira's side brought forward a few papers and a recording that showed how certain reports were changed inside the department. It was clear and simple proof. The courtroom became silent again. Ryan could hear people whispering behind him. Even Officer Dale looked down for a moment. The judge studied the papers carefully and asked a few questions. Mira answered with short and clear explanations. The lawyer from the other side tried to argue, but the evidence spoke for itself. The judge said that the court would continue the next day to review everything. Then he ended the session. As people began leaving, Ryan stood by the door again. He saw Mira collecting her papers slowly. Her expression was calm but tired. The long hours of standing and speaking had drained her energy. Ryan felt an urge to say something supportive. When she walked past, he said that the truth always takes time but never loses its strength. She looked at him and smiled, saying that she hoped people like him would always remember that. Outside the courthouse, the sky was bright. News reporters stood near the steps waiting for statements. Cameras flashed as Mira stepped outside. She did not stop to give long talks. She only said that she trusted the court and that she believed in fairness for everyone. Her short words made her seem even stronger. The reporters followed her for a few seconds and then turned to talk to the lawyers. Ryan watched from a distance. He knew that tomorrow would bring more pressure, more questions, and more eyes watching the case. But he also knew that something good was happening. The system was being forced to look at itself. People were starting to see that truth can come from calm voices, not just loud ones that evening. Ryan returned home again with many thoughts in his mind. He sat on his chair, looking at the small plant on his table. It reminded him of patience, how things grow slowly but surely when cared for. He thought about Mira's courage and her calm way of speaking. He wondered how someone could stay so steady under pressure. Maybe it was because she truly believed in what she was saying. As he looked out the window, the city lights shone below. He felt proud that he had met someone like her, someone who could speak with such clarity. He promised himself that from now on, he would not just follow rules blindly. He would try to understand the heart of those rules, the reason they were made, to protect people and bring fairness. Tomorrow would be another day in court. Another test for everyone involved. But for Ryan, something had already changed deeply inside. He was no longer just a guard at the courtroom door. He was now a quiet witness to how truth could rise even in the hardest places. And somewhere in his heart, he hoped that more people would learn to listen to voices like Mira's. Voices that did not shout or blame, but guided others toward what was right. The third day of the hearing began with clouds in the sky. The weather looked heavy and gray, as if the city itself was waiting for something big to happen. People entered the courthouse slowly, whispering about the case that had already become the Talk of the town. Ryan stood at his usual post near the courtroom door. He had not slept well the night before. His mind was full of thoughts about truth, justice, and the strange calm strength that Mira carried within her. He respected her now more than ever. Every time he remembered her words about honesty, he felt something change inside him. When Mira arrived that morning, she looked a little tired but still focused. Her calm walk and steady face showed that she was ready for whatever the day would bring. She greeted the staff politely and took her seat near the front. Ryan noticed that some officers avoided looking at her while others gave quick nods of respect. The judge entered and the courtroom turned silent. Everyone stood until the judge asked them to sit. The air was still and full of quiet tension. Papers rustled softly. Lawyers prepared their files and Mira opened her folder again, ready to continue her report. The judge started by saying that the evidence presented yesterday had raised many questions. He said the court had received new documents overnight from a person who wished to stay unnamed. The judge said these papers seemed important and could help reveal the full picture. A soft murmur moved through the room. Mira looked surprised but calm. The lawyer from her side stood up and asked permission to look at the new papers. The judge handed them over. One by one, Mira and her lawyer started reading the pages. Their eyes widened slightly as they turned each sheet. Ryan watched carefully from his spot. He could see Mira's face change from calm to serious. The papers must have held something big. He wished he could know what it was, but his duty kept him silent. After a few minutes, Mira stood. She asked the judge if she could speak. The judge allowed her. She said that these new papers were copies of internal messages between certain senior officers. They proved that the orders given in those reports were changed on purpose before reaching the court. It meant someone had tried to hide the truth from everyone. Loud whisper moved across the courtroom. The lawyer from the other side looked shocked. The judge asked for silence and then ordered that the documents be read aloud. Mira read each line slowly. Her voice stayed steady even though the information was strong. The messages clearly showed that mistakes were hidden and a few names appeared again and again, including Officer Dale. Ryan felt his heart beating faster. He could not believe what he was hearing. He remembered how proud Dale had looked on the first day. Now it seemed that pride had a reason to hide something. The judge looked at Dale and asked if he wanted to respond. Dale stood, his shoulders stiff. His face showed pressure, but he tried to stay calm. He said he did not know about those messages. He said someone must have used his name without his knowledge. Mira looked at him quietly. Her eyes did not show anger, only disappointment. She asked him one question. Did you sign the final report before it was sent? Dale stayed silent for a long moment. Everyone watched him. Then he finally nodded slowly. The courtroom filled with a soft gasp of disbelief. The judge asked everyone to stay calm. He said that the court would check the truth of these new documents by calling a digital expert. Mira returned to her seat, but Ryan could see that she was still thinking deeply. He admired how she never lost control, even when she had every reason to be upset. During the short break that followed, Ryan walked out into the hallway. He leaned against the wall and took a deep breath. The noise of people talking filled the space. He heard some officers whispering that the case was now dangerous for their department. Others said it was about time someone told the truth. Ryan felt proud that someone like Mira had the courage to stand there alone against so much pressure. Mira stepped out after a few minutes. She held her folder close and looked at the rain starting outside. The window. Ryan approached her and spoke softly. He said that sometimes truth comes from the places no one expects. She smiled and said that sometimes it also comes when people like him choose to listen, instead of looking away. They stood quietly. For a while, the sound of rain filled the silence. Mira then said that truth does not destroy respect, it only rebuilds it stronger. Ryan understood what she meant. He had seen how honesty could shake people but also make them better. When the break ended, everyone returned to the courtroom. The expert came in carrying a small computer. He checked the papers and said that the digital signatures matched the real ones. The messages were not fake, they were real evidence. The judge nodded slowly and said that this confirmed Mira's findings. The lawyer for the police side looked pale. He asked the judge for more time to review, but the judge said the facts were already clear. The courtroom stayed silent as the judge spoke about the importance of truth in public service. He said that hiding mistakes only creates bigger problems and that honesty is the only way to earn trust again. Mira listened quietly. Her hands rested on the table. She did not smile or celebrate. She only looked thoughtful, as if she knew that this was not the end yet. The judge said that the final decision would come the next day and ended the session. Early people left the room slowly. Some officers looked worried, while others looked relieved. Ryan stayed near the door watching Mira pack her things. When she stood to leave, he walked beside her. He said that her calm courage had changed the way he saw his own duty. She thanked him for saying that and told him that even a small act of understanding can create change. Outside the courthouse, the rain had stopped. The wet streets shone under the light of the setting sun. Reporters stood again, waiting for statements. Mira spoke briefly. She said that truth had finally started to show, and that she hoped this would help build better trust between people and the law. Her words were simple but carried deep meaning. Ryan stood at a distance watching again. He felt proud, but also thoughtful. He realized that truth can be powerful without shouting. It can stand quietly and still make everyone listen. That night when he reached home, he sat near his window again. The rain had returned lightly, tapping against the glass. He thought about the day, about the new papers, and about Mira's words. He knew that tomorrow would bring a decision, but in his heart he already knew what was right. He looked out at the street lights shining through the rain. He thought about his own work, how he could be fair and honest in every small action. He wanted to be the kind of person who could look anyone in the eye and say he did his duty with truth. In that quiet moment, Ryan felt peace for the first time in many days. He understood that the biggest change was not happening in the courtroom. It was happening inside people's hearts, including his own. The courthouse would open again in the morning and the final day would come. But tonight he rested with a clear mind, knowing that truth had already begun to win. The courthouse looked brighter that morning. Sunlight reflected off the glass windows, giving the hall a golden glow. People moved in slowly, whispering about the final session of the hearing. Many wondered how the outcome would affect everyone involved. Ryan arrived early again. He stood near the main door, watching the people enter. His uniform was neat and clean, but his mind was busy thinking about Mira and the events of the last 2 days. He felt a strong sense of responsibility now, not just as an officer, but as someone who understood the value of honesty and fairness. Mira entered soon after. She held her folder tightly in her hands, but her steps were calm and steady. She smiled at a few familiar faces and nodded politely to the court staff. Then she took her seat at the front, ready to continue her report and answer any questions. The judge entered and the room fell silent. Everyone stood until he asked them to sit. The session began with the lawyer from the police side asking for clarification about the new evidence from yesterday. The judge listened and then asked Mira to present her summary. She stood and spoke clearly about the reports, the messages, and the evidence of hidden mistakes. Her words were simple but carried strong meaning. Everyone in the room listened carefully. Ryan watched closely. He could see the impact her words had on the judge, the lawyers, and even the officers involved in the case. Some people looked nervous while others looked thoughtful. Mira did not raise her voice or show anger. She only explained the facts calmly and logically. When she finished, the judge asked her a few questions about the process her team had followed and how they verified the information. Mira answered each question with patience. She explained that honesty was her priority and that she wanted the truth to help everyone understand what had happened. Officer Dale was called again. This time he looked more serious. He walked slowly to the stand and listened as the judge asked about the new messages and the changes in the reports. He admitted that he had signed some documents without reading them carefully, but he insisted that he had not intended to hide anything. He said he would cooperate fully from now on. Mira asked him a few questions respectfully. She did not blame him. Instead, she asked how future mistakes could be prevented. and how honesty could be encouraged. Within the department, Dale answered thoughtfully. He nodded and said he would support new measures to ensure transparency. Ryan felt relief seeing that Dale was ready to accept responsibility and work for change. The judge thanked Mira for her clear and honest report. He said that it had helped the court understand the situation fully. He also addressed the officers and staff, saying that fairness, respect, and truth were the most important rules in any system, and that everyone should remember them in their work. Ryan felt proud. He had seen how calm, courage, and truth could change the mood of a room and influence decisions. He thought about his own work and how he could be more careful, more fair, and more understanding in his duties. He realized that real strength came from honesty, not just rules or uniforms. After the judge finished speaking, the session ended. People began to leave slowly, talking quietly among themselves. Some officers discussed ways to improve their department, while others praised Mira for her patience and intelligence. Ryan stood near the door and watched her gather her papers. She looked calm but tired. When she passed him, he said quietly that she had done a great job and that her courage had inspired many people. He added that he hoped the lessons learned today would last. She smiled warmly and said that she believed the future could be better if people like him continued to do their work with care and honesty. Outside the courthouse, the city felt lively and bright. The morning sun shone on the streets and buildings. Ryan and Mira walked slowly toward the parking area. They spoke briefly about the next steps and how the reports would be used to improve the system. Mira thanked Ryan again for being attentive and fair. She said that small acts of understanding could make big changes in the long run. Ryan thought about her words as he walked away. He realized that everyone could play a role in creating fairness and honesty, no matter how small their position was. He felt hope for the future and a sense of responsibility to continue doing what was right. That afternoon, Ryan returned home. He sat by his window looking at the city below. He remembered the last 3 days in the courthouse and the way Mira had handled everything. He thought about courage, truth, and the importance of calm and careful actions. He understood that real respect and trust could only come from fairness and honesty. Mira, meanwhile, went to her office. She reviewed her notes and made plans to share her findings with the council. She wanted to ensure that everyone understood the importance of transparency and careful work. She also thought about how calm communication could solve problems more effectively than anger or harsh words. As the day moved on, both Ryan and Mira reflected on the lessons learned from the hearing. Ryan realized that his work as an officer was not just about following orders, but also about thinking carefully, being fair, and understanding people. Mira realized that courage could be expressed without anger, and that patience could be just as powerful as strong words. That evening, the city was quiet again. Lights reflected on the wet streets and the sounds of distant traffic filled the air. Ryan looked out at the skyline, feeling calm and hopeful. He knew that the changes that had begun in the courthouse would not end immediately, but that every honest act would contribute to a better system. Mira returned home too. She thought about the people she had met, the challenges she had faced, and the progress made. She felt satisfaction knowing that calm honesty could influence even the most difficult situations. She made a promise to herself to continue speaking for fairness wherever she could. The next day would bring the final decision. But both Ryan and Mira felt that something important had already happened. They had seen how patience, truth, and courage could create change without conflict or harshness. They had learned that fairness is powerful when combined with calm and careful action. That night, Ryan sat quietly, reflecting on his own growth. He felt determined to be more careful in his duties, to respect the truth, and to help others whenever possible. Mira also reflected, thinking about the responsibility that came with knowledge and courage. She hoped that the system would become more transparent and that people would continue to learn from this experience. The courthouse, now silent, seemed to rest as if it had witnessed something important. Both Ryan and Mira knew that their work was not over, but that the lessons learned and the changes beginning were the start of something lasting. In their hearts, they felt a quiet hope that fairness, respect, and honesty would guide their actions from now on. and that people everywhere could learn to handle challenges with calm courage and careful thought. The courthouse looked calm that morning. The sunlight poured through the large windows, filling the hall with a warm glow. People moved slowly inside, talking softly about the final decision of the hearing. Some carried papers, others whispered quietly, and many eyes turned toward the main courtroom. Ryan arrived early, as he had every day since the hearing began. His uniform was neat and his badge reflected the light. He stood near the door, watching people arrive, thinking about the past few days. He remembered Mira's calm courage, the way she had spoken with clarity, and the way she had handled every question without anger. That memory gave him strength. He felt proud to be part of this moment. Mira entered the hall a little later. She held her folder carefully but walked with confidence. People greeted her politely and some nodded in respect. She smiled briefly and took her usual seat at the front. Her calm demeanor showed that she was ready for the day ahead. The judge entered the courtroom and everyone stood. He asked them to sit and the room became completely silent. The final session began with the judge thanking everyone for their patience and careful attention during the past hearings. He said the court had reviewed all the evidence, including the new documents that Mira had presented, and had considered the explanations from all parties. The lawyer from the police side spoke first. He acknowledged the mistakes that had been found and said that the department was ready to cooperate fully to ensure fairness and transparency. He admitted that some rules had not been followed carefully and that it was important to learn from the experience. Mira listened quietly. She did not show any emotion except calm focus. When it was her turn, she spoke clearly. She explained how important it was for everyone to remember that honesty, fairness, and respect are more valuable than pride or fear. She said that acknowledging mistakes and learning from them was a sign of real strength. Her words were simple, but everyone in the room understood their meaning. Ryan stood silently at the back, observing. He felt admiration for Mira's wisdom. He realized that the courage to speak the truth with respect could create more change than shouting or anger ever could. He also thought about his own responsibilities and the ways he could improve in his work by applying fairness and understanding. The judge reviewed the evidence again and said that the officers involved had agreed to correct the mistakes and follow new guidelines to ensure transparency. He commended Mira for her careful investigation and her courage in presenting the facts clearly and calmly. He said her actions had helped the court and the public understand the situation better and had created a path for positive change in the department. Ryan felt a quiet sense of relief. He had seen how patience and truth could influence people and bring results. He looked at Mira, who now rested her hands calmly on her folder, and felt that the journey had been worth every moment. Her calm strength had inspired him to think carefully about how he approached his work and life. When the session ended, people slowly stood and left their seats. Some officers approached Mira to thank her for her work. They spoke politely and with respect. She listened quietly and smiled briefly, saying that the purpose of her work was to help everyone do better. Ryan also stepped forward and said that her actions had shown him the power of honesty and calm courage. Mira thanked him and said that even small acts of fairness could create great change over time. Outside the courthouse, the city was bright and full of life. The wet streets reflected sunlight, creating a peaceful atmosphere. Reporters gathered near the steps, eager to capture statements about the final decision. Mira spoke briefly, saying that fairness and honesty should guide everyone's work and that the experience had shown the importance of careful and respectful communication. Her words were simple but carried weight. Ryan watched from a distance. He felt proud to witness such a moment. He understood that the real lesson was not just about rules or procedures, but about how people treated each other with honesty and respect. He promised himself that he would apply these lessons in every action he took, both at work and in life. As the day continued, Mira returned to her office. She organized her reports, wrote notes about the changes needed, and thought about how to share her findings with her colleagues. She wanted to make sure that everyone understood the importance of transparency and careful work. She also reflected on the power of patience and calmness in handling difficult situations. Ryan returned home as well. He sat by his window looking at the city lights shining on the streets below. He remembered the past few days in the courthouse, the tension, the calm courage of Mira, and the way truth had been presented without anger. He realized that real strength was shown in honesty, patience, and respect, not in force or pride. That evening, both Ryan and Mira reflected on their own growth. Ryan thought about his work as an officer and the responsibility he now felt to be fair, understanding, and thoughtful. Mira thought about her role in the council and the responsibility she had to continue speaking for honesty and transparency. Both felt a quiet hope that the lessons learned would continue to influence others in the future. The city outside settled into calm night sounds, and the courthouse was quiet. Ryan and Mira both understood that the changes made in the past few days were only the beginning. Their actions had shown that fairness and honesty could guide decisions and inspire people, but it required patience and courage. The next day would bring new challenges and responsibilities for everyone involved, but the lessons from the courtroom would remain. Ryan knew that he would approach his duties with a clearer understanding of justice and fairness. Mira knew that she could continue advocating for truth calmly and respectfully, and that her actions could inspire others to do the same. That night, Ryan sat quietly reflecting on the events and the people he had met. He thought about the quiet courage it took to speak truth, the careful work of investigation, and the importance of respect in all interactions. He realized that small actions of fairness and honesty could create a ripple effect that influenced many lives. Mira also reflected as she prepared her notes for the council. She thought about the power of calm words, clear evidence, and steady courage. She believed that change was possible when people chose to act with honesty and understanding. The experience had strengthened her belief that fairness could guide decisions, and that respect could turn challenges into opportunities for growth. The courthouse, now silent, seemed to rest after witnessing the careful and respectful unfolding of truth. Both Ryan and Mira had learned lessons that would stay with them. They had seen how patience, honesty, and calm courage could overcome confusion and fear. They had seen how respect could open hearts and create understanding where there had been tension. In the hearts of both, a quiet hope remained that the values of fairness, honesty, and respect would continue to guide actions in their city and beyond. The courtroom had shown that even in challenging situations, careful words and honest efforts could create lasting change, and that the smallest acts of understanding could influence the greatest outcomes. The day ended with the sun setting gently behind the city skyline. Ryan and Mira both walked away carrying lessons, courage, and hope. They understood that the work of honesty and fairness never truly ends, but every step taken in truth brings progress and inspires others to do the same.